Welcome to my MAD MasterClass. My name is Clara and I'm filming today from the beautiful Brisbane in Australia. I'm going to teach you in 3 steps of how to create customer loyalty, and today is the third out of 3 sessions. Customer loyalty is highly desired by companies as it is way more expensive to constantly acquire new customers than keeping existing ones. Thus, most brands perform different strategies in order to create customer loyalty. One step to create loyalty is through developing a positive memory in the customer's mind, which results through learning. We all have some brands or products which we prefer above others and which we regularly buy without considering alternative products. But why is this so? And how can brands create this kind of customer loyalty? If you want to know the answers to those questions and you're keen about this topic, then I encourage you to pay attention and keep watching to my master's class. Alright, so in this session I would love to explain to you the psychological background of learning and memory first, before applying this knowledge to marketing practices. Learning can be described as an ongoing process where our knowledge is constantly revised as we are exposed to new stimuli and receive feedback on a daily basis. Most of the time we're not even consciously learning like we are for an exam, so those processes mainly happen subconsciously. Behavioral learning theories focus on stimulus-response connection of the recipient. One can assume that learning takes place as a result of response to external events. I want to discuss 2 basic theories with you. The first one is classical conditioning, developed by the Russian psychologist Ivan Pavlov, and the second one is called instrumental or operant conditioning. For classical conditioning, a stimulus that elicits a response is paired with another stimulus that initially does not elicit a response on its own. But what does this exactly mean? Let me explain to you what Ivan Pavlov's experiment was. So, he used a dog for this experiment. If Pavlov would give the dog food, the dog would salivate. This is a normal response triggered by an unconditioned stimulus where the dog sees and smells the food. Okay, and now Pavlov is adding an auditory stimulus, the sound of a bell, to when he gives the dog food. After repeating this process a couple of times, the dog will associate the sound of the bell with getting food and automatically salivate even if he only hears the bell. This is called a conditioned response as it is generated repeatedly paired exposures of food and the sound of the bell. However, the dog will forget this response again if he will repeatedly hear the bell without getting any food. This simplified example is an appropriate replication of how the human learning process works. This knowledge can be used for marketing purposes. Alright, so moving on to the second learning theory. For instrumental or operant conditioning, the individual learns to perform behaviors that produce positive outcomes and to avoid behaviors that yield negative outcomes. This type of conditioning occurs when reinforcement is delivered following a response to a stimulus. The reinforcement is positive if a reward is delivered following a response, and negative if a negative outcome is avoided by not performing a response. Some kind of punishment occurs when a response is followed by an unpleasant event, and an extinction occurs if the reinforcement is no longer needed. To illustrate this concept, think about university. Now, if you walk along the hallway, you see Kenneth and smile at him. If he smiles back, this was a positive reinforcement, and you will do so again. However, if you smile at him a couple of times and Kenneth never smiles back, you will stop doing so at some point, which is called an extinction. Now you're trying to avoid negative behavior such as cheating in an exam, which would lead to failing a course. This process is called negative reinforcement. And lastly, if you're mad at a team member for doing a bad job in your group project and you are really mad, and this person will scream at you as a response, this is called a punishment. I hope that providing this example makes the concept a bit more clearer to you, and as marketers we are trying to achieve a positive reinforcement such that consumers will regularly repurchase a product as they feel happy or rewarded while using it, so that their mind creates a positive connection. Alright, a consequence of the behavioral learning theories is that the person will store the information received in their memory. Memory can be described as the process of acquiring and storing information such that it will be available if needed or when a certain stimuli is triggered. External inputs lead a person to encoding, which is placing the information received in their memory. This is followed by storing the information in someone's memory. And the final step is retrieving or using the information stored in someone's mind, called retrieval. So, one kind of external inputs can be sensory stimuli to which we are constantly exposed to. The human being has 5 senses, which are vision, smell, sound, touch, and taste. Our senses are often used for marketing techniques and part of our learning process. Senses such as smell are also deeply saved in our memory, especially for childhood memories. Try it yourself and smell some sunscreen and you will instantly think about summer holidays and the beach. So, how can all this knowledge be used in practice for marketing techniques of creating brand or product loyalty? Before answering this question, please pause this video for a few minutes and think about the following questions. About which product do you have the strongest memory with, either if it's positive or negative, and why and what kind of memories do you associate with this product? I'll see you back in a few minutes. Okay, welcome back to my session, and first of all I want to share my personal experience about the product and answer the questions I just asked you. So for me personally, the product I associate the greatest memory with is my boyfriend's perfume, because it smells really good and I really like the smell of it, and associate my boyfriend when smelling the perfume, and it really makes me feel happy and comfortable and let me think about good times we have together. And so even if I'm not with him and I smell the scent somewhere else, I instantly have to think of my boyfriend and feel happy about it. And this is already one kind of conditioning, which I just explained with even Pavlov's experiment, that now I associate this perfume with the person I love and automatically also like the scent of the perfume. Okay, but moving on, one marketing application of classical conditioning is repetition. As repetition increases learning, which is what we just learned about Pavlov's experiment with the dog, it can be a useful marketing tool to bring the product or brand into the consumer's mind by regularly showing an advertisement, for example. However, it is crucial not to repeat certain progresses too often, because this can also have a negative effect on the consumer and make him dislike the brand. Thus, exposure leads to brand awareness. However, too much or too less exposure can have a negative effect and lead to brand extinction. Thus, in today's world of marketing and increasing competition, it is important for brands to offer a brand experience to its customers. In order to create value and customer loyalty, they can do so in stimulating the consumer's senses, which will result in learning and finally become a memory the consumer will recall if one of the senses is triggered. Therefore, it is crucial that marketers are not only stimulating one of the senses, but preferably all of them, to increase the learning and memory effect in the consumer's mind. For instance, in order to make a difference, it is not enough to only stimulate one sense by creating a visually appealing social media ad. Of course, it can be quite complicated to appeal all senses through online advertising, for example. Thus, the key is repetition. So, let's start at a physical store, and I will take the company Rituals as an example, which was founded in Amsterdam in the Netherlands and is an international cosmetic company offering a range of beauty products including shampoos, lotions and candles. Okay, in the physical store it is easy to see, smell and touch the product, which is already stimulating 3 senses. However, virtual stores are even a bit more special, as they are creating a very pleasant atmosphere to its customers. They place the products very nicely, and they even have sinks where consumers can wash their hands or even get their hands washed by employees and try and feel the product. Furthermore, the whole store has a nice scented smell which fits very well into the whole experience. And they also play some nice and relaxing music. So this is already stimulating 4 senses. But what about the taste? So on top of this, employees even offer small cups of tea for the consumer to try. Thus, rituals is a perfect example of stimulating all 5 senses and creating a unique customer experience which fits very well to the brand and its products. Okay, so for rituals marketing strategy, it is important now to come back to the senses created in the physical store. For instance, in creating an online advertisement showing someone using the product and having a similar kind of music in the background. Doing so has a similar effect to Pavlov's experiment. In this case, the music replaces the sound of the bell. The dog is replaced by the consumer, and instead of salivating, the consumer is purchasing the product. In listening again to this kind of music, the consumer will be reminded of the positive feeling of purchasing the product. Besides this, in order to give the viewer a hint of the smell in the advertisement, the ingredients could be shown. For instance, in displaying flowers, the consumer will automatically have the kind of smell in their mind without actually smelling it. This is linked to the consumer's memory and the ability to retrieve information such as the smell of a flower without actually smelling it. Furthermore, on a company website, the brand could create special effects such as displaying a short video clip when the consumer is clicking on a specific collection or product. The video should only take a few seconds and, for instance, show a nice speech for a product which smells and feels very fresh. This should be accompanied by some music, and again, the sensory stimuli of the consumers are triggered. This kind of learning should be used by marketers when it is not possible to them to stimulate all the senses at once. Furthermore, especially for beauty products or products which can also be fully experienced in only a small portion, it is recommendable for companies to distribute small trial products. In the case of rituals, they could give customers a small trial product for every purchase they make. Doing so will activate the customer's learning mechanism for positive reinforcement, as they get repeatedly rewarded for making a purchase at the store and will create a positive connection with making a purchase. The psychological effect is that the consumer is more likely to go back to the store and purchase another product in order to relive the feeling of getting a reward. In following those recommendations of stimulating as many senses as possible when selling or promoting a product, the customer will make a connection more easily than without stimulating most or all of the senses. They will also recall them faster when they experience a similar stimulus. Creating this kind of memory will make the customer choose this certain product over others, or will make him or her go back to the store as a positive reinforcement was created, which results in customer loyalty. Alright, so now you reached the end of today's session. I really hope you enjoyed it and you learned something valuable from it. If you did, then please feel free to leave me a like and comment something down below if you have any questions. I hope you stay mad, and I'll see you in the next session where I'll be talking about motivation.